What a tough week for LA. Let's talk about it. First pitch is next, guys. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 45 of Bringing the Heat. My name's Cody Pyatt, and with me, as always, the four-seam fastball co-host, Will Sism. Alek Manoah, we got out of the way early. Will, how was your week, my man?
Honestly, it was an Alek Manoah kind of week. It's been
There
a
you
long
go.
week.
No doubt.
But hey, we're here. We're ready to rock this one. And got some, man, I don't want to say some really good stuff because some of this is going to be pretty tough to talk about. But it's good stuff, and this is going to be a good episode.
Yeah, man, tough pill to swallow this week for Major League Baseball. We're going to dive into it. We're going to start with where do we stand, hit the standings. It is really heating up. Some of the divisions.
Yeah.
I mean, we got three teams within one game of each other. It's absolutely nuts. Minnesota is making a run at this point. I mean, 6.5 games. What are we talking about? Then we'll go to Heat Check Player of the Week. Got a couple of studs there to talk about. We're going to get on What's on the Grill with Will. Can you put ice cream on a grill? Because that's kind of what I feel like we're doing. It's just not good topics to talk about. But we got to hit them, dude. But, man, it is rough now that I look at them. We're going to dust off an oldie with who's putting the fire out. Look at the bullpens. And then Roman Candle, 11-2. Will holds a pretty solid lead. I am 1,000% sure that he has wrapped that one up. The magic number is like -4. So he is good there. But hang in, maybe we'll make it close. Maybe when we look at it next year, it doesn't look this embarrassing. So that is what we're playing for. We're playing for pride. Okay?
Playing for
Same
pride.
thing Kansas City and Oakland's playing for, Will, okay?
That's right.
So let's dive in with the American League East and where do we stand. The Baltimore Orioles are 80-48, first team to 80 wins in the AL. They're 2.5 up on Tampa Bay, still hanging in at 79-52. Toronto, 71-59, looking pretty sharp. Our Red Sox, 69-61. They are 6.5 games up on the Yankees. Yankees are done toast, 62-67. In the Central, I teased it earlier, you got Minnesota. It is pretty much their division. You have to think 67-62. Cleveland, 61-69. Then you have Detroit, the White Sox, and Kansas City hanging out, battling for high draft picks. The West, holy moly, dude, is this the best division in baseball? Seattle and Texas are, well, officially this evening, I guess Seattle won. They spanked Kansas City. So you got a 73-56 first place Seattle Mariners team. They're a half game up on Texas, who is in the middle of a 8-game losing streak. Pretty tough to watch. 72-56. You got Houston a game and a half back. This is all within a game and a half of each other. 72-58. And then the Angels and Oakland, I'm grouping them together because I think they're both done.
They're done.
What do you got, Will? Talk to me, bud.
Yeah, man. So I tell you what, though, starting out in the East, man, we'll talk about this in more detail here in a little bit, but Baltimore potentially got a big-time blow, potentially losing Felix Bautista. It just happened last night, so we have no idea how severe, significant the injury might be, but anytime you're talking about pitching elbow, UCL, it is not usually pretty news. So you talk about a huge blow potentially to Baltimore if this is indeed long term. I mean, that's the name of the game for the Orioles is score a lot of runs and get it to the bullpen. Yeah. And if you've got your arguably the best closer in baseball right now with Edwin Diaz out, if he's on the shelf for a significant period of time, man, that's tough news. But anyways, as of right now, Baltimore looks good. Tampa, amid all the bad news over the last few weeks, they've actually strung together some wins lately. They're playing pretty good baseball. So here's the thing. Tampa's going to get into the playoffs barring some catastrophic finish, and they're going to be a tough out. I just think that when they get into the playoffs, it's going to be a tough road for them just because they're down so many top-end players. But you know what's really interesting, though, is kind of rounding out the East. I don't know if Toronto is going to get in, man.
Yeah.
Because you've got Seattle on fire right now. You have to believe Texas and Houston's going to figure it out. They're both really not playing well at all right now. But, man, Toronto just feels like they're squandering a lot of opportunities. And I don't really understand it because on paper they should be very, very good.
Yeah.
They're not quite giving me White Sox vibes. I don't want to insult them that bad. But
Yeah.
I tell you what, if Toronto ends up missing the playoffs, you have to consider them perhaps one of the most disappointing teams in the league.
Dude,
given their
saw-
talent.
no doubt. I saw a stat today. They have the lowest team ERA in all
Oh, I
of Major League
believe it.
Baseball.
Uh-huh.
So it's just like, where are the holes? I mean, Jordan Romano in that bullpen is, he's had his ups and downs, but he's been nice most of the year.
Yep.
Real quick, hitting the wild card. I know we still have to hit the Central. I mean, we can skip the Central too.
Well, no, the Central, Minnesota, barring just an absolute catastrophic failure, is going to hands down win the Central.
Yeah.
And then out west, I tell you what, I think Seattle might win the West.
Yeah, they're the hottest team right now.
They are so hot. I don't know what's going on in Texas. I did not see this coming.
No.
Especially with the Rangers, and really the Astros have not been much better than the Rangers, and so it's going to be they better figure it out though, because
Yeah.
Toronto's still there, Boston could string some wins together, so but man, Seattle looks really good right now.
Yeah, I'll hit on the wild card. I meant to, guys. So I'll raise my hand and apologize on that. You have Tampa Bay. They're 79-52. They're 6.5 games up. So they're the only team that's really, pretty seated in that wild card spot. After that, listen to this. You got Texas 72-56, Houston 72-58. Those are the two remaining that have the 2 and 3 seed. And then a game out and 3 games out, you have Toronto, the game out, and then Boston 3 games out. Now, somebody asked me at work this week, like, do I really think this Boston team has what it takes? And quick answer is no. They don't have the pitching. I mean, you don't have the legs to run this playoff race, unfortunately, against these other teams. But could they cause some disruption and dysfunction? 100%. So to me, honestly, I mean, because then after Boston, you have 9.5 games out. You have L.A. and then New York. So
yeah, they're done.
It's to me, it's about you got 5 teams vying for 3 spots, or really taking Tampa Bay off the top. You have 4 teams vying for 2 spots. So it's man, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. But you're right. You're right on the Blue Jays, man. Like, when is this gonna happen? Is it gonna happen? This is the preview. Now this is the movie. And all this stuff, all these young guys, these guys are a step closer to free agency. There's no world where the Blue Jays bring everybody back. So
the Blue Jays,
yeah,
they should be thanking teams like the Cardinals, like everybody's been killing the Cardinals this year, and rightfully so. But if it was not for the Cardinals being so disappointing, I feel like some people would start jumping more on the Blue Jays, because let's face it, this was a lot of people's preseason World Series pick. This felt like kind of the trendy pick. And to your point, the pitching has been really good. Kevin Gossman's been awesome. Barrios has had a solid year. Bassett's been pretty good. I feel like I'm missing somebody, but
my man Manoah.
I know he hasn't been. And I tell you what, Ryu's been really good since he just returned.
That's right.
So the pitching's not the problem.
Yeah.
And that lineup, man, somebody's got to start holding some of those guys accountable.
Yeah. Yep. Nope. You're 100% right. Dude, anything could happen. It is close enough where they could get in and make some noise. But you look at this young core they have. They got swept out of the wild card last year, and that's all they've done. So they still got to prove it to us. I don't think I'd want to see them in a 3-game set, but we'll see what happens. Moving on, man, to the National League. Oh, gosh. Speaking of things that are pretty settled, you got Atlanta at 84-44. They're 14 games better than the Philadelphia Phillies in second place here, 70-58. Then you have Miami sitting at 500, 65 wins, 65 losses. this is what I really caught my eye this morning when I took a gander at these standings. You got the Washington Nationals in fourth place, 61 and 69, and then the New York Mets, 59 and 70. Woof, that is tough. In the Central, talking about hot teams, man, you got the Milwaukee Brewers, 71 and 57. They're on a 6-game winning streak. They got 4 games up on the Cubs at 67 and 61. A game behind them are the Reds, so they're still doing their thing. Then you got Pittsburgh and St. Louis. They're kind of battling out there for last place.
Yeah.
In the West, it's the Dodgers division. Once again, 79 and 49, 11 and a half games up. I mean, my goodness, they are 7 and 3 in their last 10 and looking great. The Diamondbacks on a 6-game winner as well, 68 and 61. They have come alive. We talked about them last episode. I don't think they've lost since we brought it up. So
Right.
You're welcome, D-backs.
That's right.
Yep. San Francisco, they're reeling. They're 3 and 7 in their last 10 and 13 and a half games out. San Diego, they are 7 games under 500. We're not going to talk about the Rockies. They're in last place, but I do have a question about San Diego. Are they toast, Will? What's happening there?
Yeah, after this week, I'm ready to call it. I'm ready to call it on San Diego. I mean, they just I think we're stating the obvious at this point, but there's just something amiss. You don't have this type of elite top end talent and have a pitching staff that's been pretty solid as well.
Snell might win the Cy Young.
Yeah, and just not be able to string wins together. Like, something is amiss. I don't have a clue what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know if anybody can explain the what's going on in San Diego. None of it makes any sense. I was reading the other day, I think they're like top 8, if I'm not mistaken, in all of Major League Baseball in run differential. So like, even some of the numbers say that they should be better than this, but they're just not.
Yeah.
And but no, to answer your question, I'm done with the Padres. I think that they can,
regroup and attack 24.
Yeah, try it again next year. But
yeah,
just hitting on the National League real quick. We've said all along the East has been done for a while. Braves are about to lock up the number 1 seed, potentially, even though the Dodgers are making a run.
Yeah.
But those are the 2 teams that are the class of the National League. The Central, this feels like the most separation all year in the Central with Milwaukee.
They're looking good.
It just seems like Milwaukee. I know I rag on the Brewers a lot, but I here's the thing, and I think that cream rises to the top, especially pitching, over the course of 162 games. And now that Brandon Woodruff is healthy again, I think it's made all the difference in the world. And you know what? The Brewers are going to be a dangerous team in the postseason if they do indeed get it there. Just because I've said all along, when you have 2 elite guys, especially in a 5-game series, and it holds true in a 7-game series too, like, they're going to have a chance.
Yeah.
And I think Cincinnati, if they would have made a few moves at the trade deadline to bolster the pitching, I think they would have maybe had a little bit of a run in them, but they didn't. And then Chicago has just been kind of hot and cold really all year. They've had streaks, good streaks, and they've had bad streaks. And I feel like that's going to kind of catch up with them at the end as well. So it's interesting, though.
No doubt. Looking at the wild card real quick, our top seed in the NL is the Phillies. They're 70 and 58. They're 3 games up. Then it gets real tight, guys. You got the Diamondbacks there in the 2nd spot, but they're only half game up. So if they lose and one of these other teams wins, I mean, they're going to be flip-flopping. Cubs, they're in that 3 spot, and then a game back of them, just like in the divisions, the Reds. A half game back of the Reds are the Giants, and then a game and a half back of the Giants is Miami. So after Miami, you hit the San Diegos. They're 6.5 games out, and then you really get Washington, New York. So if you're being nice, you could put San Diego in there, but I think it's Miami, San Francisco, Reds, Cubs, stuff like that.
I agree.
What do you think, man? You think they're going to be any change in here, or how do you feel about those top 3?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I've said all along, I think the Phillies, I feel pretty confident that they should definitely be one of the wild card teams.
Mm-hmm.
Out of the rest, it's going to be really hard to predict because all of these teams it feels like they're all showing their warts right now. At least that's kind of the vibe I'm getting. Here's the two teams I would love to see get in. I'll put it this way.
Okay.
I would love to see Arizona get in. Now, do I think that they're going to win a series against the Braves or the Dodgers? No, I don't.
Oh, man.
But I do think that Arizona is building something really, really good. I think they're probably, even if you hook their executives up to a lie detector test, I think that they're a year or two early ahead of schedule.
Mm-hmm.
But they're here. And here's the thing. I think what makes them interesting is they have a true number one in Zach Gallen. They've got a superstar budding in Corbin Carroll. They've got a solid lineup. So I would like to see a team like Arizona get in. I would also like to see the Marlins get in.
Okay.
I think if the Marlins could just get in, they would have a puncher's chance just because of their pitching.
Yep.
The lineup still leaves some things to be desired, even though they addressed it at the trade deadline. But the pitching makes them dangerous because, if whoever they decided to go with in game one, whether that's Alcantara, whether that's a guy like Yuri Perez, Luzardo, they've got plenty of options. And I think they would at least have a shot in especially a 5-game series. So,
yeah.
I don't want to see the Giants get in. I just think that their lineup is just bleh. and who am I missing? The Cubs. The Cubs are just like Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah.
I don't know on any given day what Cubs team I'm going to get.
They could win the pennant if they're playing like good Cubs baseball. They look that good.
And then they could lose to literally anybody. They could get swept against anybody, it feels like.
And a 7-game loser the last week of the season and miss that on the wild card.
And Cincinnati, as much as I would love to see some of those young guys for Cincinnati get their feet wet in the playoffs, I'm just going to be honest, I just don't think they'd be a competitive matchup for L.A. or the Braves or really anybody because they just don't have – they don't have any pitching that can match up right now. Hunter Green hasn't looked good since he returned. Lodolo's still not healthy. I just can't believe they didn't really even try to address it at the deadline, to be honest.
Definitely weird. Definitely weird.
It's almost like, you know what, this is a bonus that we're competing this year and that our young guys look really good so far, and we're not going to do anything to help them this year.
That's right. Yeah, let's just enjoy the ride. They've been playing well enough.
Yeah.
Speaking of weird things, man.
Who do you like? Who would you like to see get in?
I'll be honest with you. That's a great question. I would like to see the Red Sox get in the National League. If we could have that happen, what paperwork do we have to do to get them? No, I'm just kidding. I honestly, I got family in Illinois. I'd like to see the Cubs do something.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see the Reds. Give me some young guns. I mean, I'm with you in the fact that like it might not be the best series matchup. Yeah. But here's what I really want out of the National League.
Dodgers, Braves.
That's what I want, man. In the NLCS, give me 7 games. Yeah. And I would just be the happiest guy.
Yeah. I'm with you.
That could happen. That could totally
happen. That would be
happen.
2 heavyweights.
Oh, dude, it would be legit. It would be – I can't even talk about it. We would have just the best time breaking it all down here. Here we go, Will. Man, we're going to move on to Heat Check Player of the Week, and just a tear in my eye when I saw the guy that you picked. I mean, say his name. Say his name.
Mookie Betts.
Woo!
Mookie Betts. And I tell you what, he's honestly been, like, probably for the past 3 weeks, the past 3 episodes, I thought about putting him in as my Heat Check Player of the Week, and I decided to go with someone else just for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. But I can't ignore him anymore.
No.
He has been absolutely, if you pull up his stats for the past month and a half, he's been on another planet.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, he's making a legitimate push. Ronald Acuna got out so far ahead of everybody, it felt like that first half of the season. Mookie Betts could legitimately win the MVP.
Oh, no doubt.
His stats are off the charts. But let's stick to this week. This week, going into today, he's batting 10 for 15. That would be a 667 average, including a 5 for 5 game. I think it was on Tuesday against the Guardians.
Mm-hmm.
He's had 3 doubles. Surprisingly, no home runs so far this week, but 6 runs scored, 2 stolen bases, and just, man, I tell you what, whenever you watch the Dodgers play, and Mookie Betts gets on base, I don't know what the stats say, but I swear it seems like every time he gets on base, he scores.
He scores. Yeah.
So shout out to Mookie Betts. He's been unbelievable, and I tell you what, I've tooted the Braves' horn, I feel like, all year, even the preseason.
Mm-hmm.
But the Dodgers are starting to look really, really, really good. And like what you said, let's not put the cart before the horse yet, but, man, if those two teams get matched up in the NLCS, get your popcorn ready.
Get your popcorn ready. Dude, here's where I'll start with Mookie. I don't know if you saw this. Friday night was his first trip back to Fenway Park since he left. So it's been since 2019. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, as emotional as a guy can get, I was sitting in bed, and I was showing it to Claire because I hadn't seen it yet, but I was like, this is going to be awesome. And you never know with Boston fans.
Yep.
Like, are they going to boo? Are they going to, what are they going to do? Because I went to one Red Sox game, and I mean, some of the stuff I heard in the crowd about our own players, I was like, man, this man's got a wife and children, and yikes, guys, like let's reel it in a little bit. So I was a little nervous, but it was all love from the Boston faithful to Mookie, and that's what it should have been. I mean, it really, man, it's rough. I had the same thing. I flipped on X. I flipped on Twitter before we got on here, and I saw Xander Bogaerts hit a home run for the Padres tonight. I was like, man, this is just tough. But back to Mook, yeah, he's just class, man. He's unbelievable. And the cool thing about him fantasy-wise is he's going to have 3 different position eligibilities, especially in Yahoo. Yahoo just gives position eligibility away.
Yeah, they do.
Some ESPN leagues and some Fantrax leagues, it might not. I don't know how many games he's played at short, but he'll definitely have second base next year, and he could have second base, shortstop, and outfield eligibility.
I think he will.
So, I mean, the dude is showing no signs of slowing down. It breaks my heart that we're going to look at him as more of a Dodger than a Red Sox. And that's pretty tough. My pick for Heat Check Player of the Week. This guy has had just a sneaky, pretty solid year. But we haven't really talked about him. Bryce Harper. He's a first baseman now. We haven't talked about that. I think I mentioned him a few weeks ago, but it was because of the lack of power. He just hasn't been hitting the home runs. But they have come this week. How about a 9 for 21 with a 429 average, a triple, 3 home runs, 7 RBIs, and a 1.523 OPS. That'll get a job done, won't it, Will?
It sure will. But, yeah, as you mentioned, it feels like as much of a year as you possibly can for a guy like Bryce Harper. He has totally flown under the radar.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. I think a lot of it was due to a lack of power, and I have to believe that, it was probably a combination of getting his kind of rhythm and timing back again, because remember, he was out for pretty much a full calendar year, almost at least. He came back early, but you have to believe too that there might have been maybe just some lingering, tightness or a little bit of soreness here and there from the surgically repaired elbow, or maybe him just not feeling 100% confident in it yet.
Yeah.
But he's starting to look like himself again, and I know Phillies fans are loving it.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell you what, it might be just in time. You know,
Yep.
him, Trey Turner get going. Schwarber's look good the last few, probably couple of weeks. And
Yeah.
again, the Phillies are really dangerous. I
Yep.
just think that that's the one team that can spoil the Dodgers-Braves collision course. So we'll see what happens. But I love what you said there. I think Bryce is trending up for sure.
Oh, no doubt, man. Hey, real quick, Kyle Schwarber homer to hit watch, because I know we touched on it earlier this year. I think it was like 15 to 15. He's got 33 homers. He has 36 singles. So
That's crazy.
keep it tuned in. It's nuts, isn't it? It's nuts. It's a tough play for fantasy. I mean,
Yeah.
it really is, because it's just like you can put anybody else in the lineup and you're going to get some production, but then he's going to hit a home run and there might be some ducks on the pond, and that
Yeah.
just stinks.
It's a pure power play, if you ask me. Like, it's
Yep.
just if you start him consistently, you know you're going to get home runs,
Yeah.
and then you know some games you're going to get offers.
0 for 4 with 5 Ks somehow. He'll find a way to strike out twice.
Yep.
He and Jelly Gallo should start a club.
Yeah.
Let's move on, man. A little bit more somber. What's on the grill with Will? A bad day for the Halos, man. Wednesday night, Shohei Ohtani left his start early, and that's kind of all I thought it was, to be honest with you. I mean, he was pushed back his prior start, and then I think the start before that he was fine, but then the prior two, he had left the game earlier. So something's going on there. Later, it was a doubleheader with the Reds. He came back, played the second game. Later, it was found out that he has a partial UCL tear in his pitching elbow. So he's done on the mound for 2023. And honestly, it's unclear if they're going to do Tommy John or what this means for his future. I don't know how rehabbing with Tommy John goes if you're DHing and batting second every
Bryce
day.
Harper.
Right? Yeah, I guess so. Bryce Harper, but Bryce Harper's not throwing a hunch
Right.
on the mound, so it's going to be interesting. And then that same day, Mike Trout, who just recently came back from the IL, he played one game and he's right back on it with a wrist injury now. He's had issues in the past with his wrist. This just stings for guys who. I mean, let's just start with the Angels. We won't talk fantasy for a second. I mean, these two guys together, they were making a push for the playoffs earlier in this year, and the wheels have just come off. They make all these moves at the trade deadline, and it just didn't pan out. Panning back to Shohei for a little bit here, Will. How much do you think this is going to affect his free agency payday?
Man. That's tough. I mean, here's the thing. Let's phrase it this way. Is this the biggest blessing in disguise potentially for the Angels? I mean, what if this does temper some of the offers that would have come out from Dodgers, Yankees, Mets, Padres, Giants, whoever you want to throw out, and maybe the Angels can now justifiably match whatever. I mean, I have no idea. We're just all speculating here.
That's right.
But I mean, I have to believe this is going to affect it. I think the bigger question is how, if you're Shohei, how do you go about this? Do you, if you have a partially torn UCL, I'm not a doctor.
Yeah.
But typically when you're talking about UCL tears, at least in my experience, usually you are talking about, elbow reconstruction, Tommy John, whatever, right?
Yeah.
But if you're Shohei, knowing that you're a free agent, knowing that you're going to break the bank, figuratively speaking,
maybe literally, we don't know.
Literally, yeah. So, do you somehow, quote unquote, postpone any type of surgery just to? I mean, I don't know.
There's a lot. Okay, so there's a lot in the word partial, because there's been pitchers who have pitched with partial tears.
Yeah.
But the issue is you're just
You're basically
really
delaying the inevitable.
correct. You're really likely to fully tear. I mean,
Right.
It's definitely not going to heal, and you're just playing with fire because it will tear. So
Right.
I'm with you, man. I mean, there's so many. Oh man, there's so many avenues to go down with this because like. To me, I don't think. I mean, he might lose a little money, sure, but
Yeah.
the Angels are not getting this guy back. Wait, I don't know if you saw the GM came out and said they did no scans of his arm, even after the fatigue and the
Which is
the
insane.
soreness.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing? You
Yeah.
know, it reeks of a organization who knows this guy's not coming back into the fold. Because if he is, you're going to take better care of him. You would
Right.
think. It's either a humongous miss on their side or the Shohei camp. I mean,
Yeah.
dude,
I mean,
I don't.
I guess when you look at it from a bright side, as far as just the free agency, though,
Mhm.
I mean, you could argue he's the best hitter in baseball right now.
He's
know?
gonna hit 50 home runs if he keeps playing.
Yeah.
He'll hit 50 home runs. He's at 44 right now.
Yeah.
And
But the thing that stinks, though,
mhm.
is, let's just hypothetically say that, Dodgers or whoever, let's just say he signs with another team.
Mhm.
Maybe the question we should be asking ourselves is that team, whoever it is, are they even going to, allow him to pitch moving forward? Just to stem some of the risk and just basically say, well, we have now signed the most talented and best left-handed hitter on the planet, and we're just going to be happy with that.
That could happen. I don't see it because I feel like so much of the fanfare is the fact that he does both.
Yeah.
I'm curious if they'll do because the Angels already have a 6-man rotation
Right.
6-man rotation trying to avoid stuff like this. Is there a lane where you pitch him on a 2-week rotation, like every 10 days? Obviously, you start messing with pitchers' timings. Some stuff that I've kicked around is maybe like, do you pitch him in the second half of the year or the first half of the year and you ramp him up, or you throw him in the bullpen? He had Tommy John when he came into the league in 2018, and he was pretty rough in 19 and 20. He had an incredible year in 21, won the MVP, runner-up last year, and then this happens. I don't know. If you get on the internet, people talk like he's passed away. He hasn't, and he could definitely come back from this. But it's just it's a loss for baseball, man, because what he was doing was spectacular.
Yeah. Well, I mean, best case scenario, though, I mean, let's face it. Unless he decides to pitch through a partially torn UCL, like we've said, it's just kind of a ticking time bomb at that point.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if he does opt for surgery, though, I mean, he definitely ain't pitching in 2024.
Nope.
Right?
No, sir.
So, I mean, at best, we're looking at, unless he pitches through this somehow, some way, at best, we're looking at 2025.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
So, yeah, just to sum it up, though, it stinks, man.
It does.
I don't know if it could be much worse timing for him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe it doesn't affect it all that much, but man,
it will a little bit.
I have to believe that it does affect the paycheck, though, as opposed to if he would have been a total clean bill of health.
Yeah. Did you see the estimation that ESPN had like a week and a half ago talking about what his contract was worth was like $789 million, which like he wasn't going to get paid that. But what they did was they said, okay, we're going to take the ace of a team, we're going to take that, and then we're going to take the best hitter on a team, 3-hole, 2-hole hitter, and we're going to put the money together. That's just not how it works. I mean, if you tell me over under $50 million, I'd still probably take the over. I just think he's that special. I think there's so much that comes with bringing in a Shohei. With just fanfare, and he's a household name. I mean, even like a Ronald Acuna. It's just like
he's the face of the game now.
Yeah, and so it's an unfortunate wrinkle that we're going to get to witness and see. What this unfolds. One thing I do not see happening. I do not see him going back to LA. who come to the Eastern Time Zone. Maybe the Dodgers, but not the Angels.
Yeah.
Moving on. Anything else you want to hit on there, Will? You want to hit on Trout at all? It's just a bummer, dude. He might be done for the year.
Yeah, Trout. It felt like it was a rush to get him back in that time frame, and the Angels are just a mess, man. You want to feel bad for them, but it's like, man, the Angels are just gonna angel, and it's just, I don't know. It's honestly kind of pathetic, really.
It's a tough spot to be in for sure. Some tough spots. Let's talk about it. If you're the former vice president or GM of the White Sox, you're in a pretty tough spot. Or maybe you're not, because you probably haven't made
Probably
the shade.
glad to get out of there.
You're probably like, hey, I'm going to go and I'm going to golf 5 times a week. That's what I'm going to do. White Sox owner fired their executive vice president, Ken Williams, and general manager Rick Hahn on Tuesday. Been a pretty rough season. They won the division in 21, got booted out of the playoffs by the Astros, but I think we can all agree that it felt like this White Sox team was going to be the team of the future, and then these pieces just have not come together. Williams, who is the vice president, he joined the White Sox front office in 1992. So this is an ownership group that will keep people around. Very akin to the Yankees. They're just not the Yankees. You don't hear about it. But it was his 11th year serving in that role. The GM, he'd been there since 2000, but had worked as the general manager for the last 12 years. So these are guys who were deeply seated in this organization, but they had cut ties. I read something interesting. I don't know if this is true. But apparently Rick Hahn, the general manager, wanted to resign when it came to hiring Tony La Russa, because the owner wanted La Russa and Rick Hahn didn't. And apparently what's being said is the owner said, hey, I'm not going to let you work anywhere else. You have to honor our contract. So very interesting there. White Sox, dumpster fire. Any takeaways?
Yeah, White Sox are a dumpster fire. I just I don't understand it. I mean, San Diego's giving them a run for their money this year, because I don't understand what's going on in San Diego either. But we'll let it ride since it's just kind of this year. So, but the White Sox are just a mess. Like, nothing makes sense these last couple of years, because on paper they should be so much better.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, okay, look at a guy. Here's a perfect example. Look at a guy like Dylan Cease. Okay. Mm-hmm. 2 years ago, everybody saw the potential. He would show signs. He'd have some games to where he was lights out, some games to where he was bad. Mm-hmm. Last year, he was borderline Cy Young, right?
Mm-hmm. Runner-up, I believe.
Yeah, runner-up in Cy Young last year. Had an incredible season.
I think Alek Manoah got third.
I know, right? But yeah, Dylan Cease, second runner-up Cy Young last year, one of the absolute top pitchers in the game. Mm-hmm. Going into this year, logic would tell you, this should be one of the best starters in the AL. A lot of people are picking him in the, third round in their fantasy draft, right?
Yeah.
He's been as bad as you could just about possibly be. And I'm not even, I mean, Dylan Cease has taken 5 steps backwards this year. Yeah.
What about Lance Lynn? The fact that he goes to L.A. and he's like a sub-3 ERA pitcher, but when he was with the White Sox, he was like a 7.
Lance Lynn had like a 7 ERA this year with the White Sox, but his strikeout rates were up, but his ERA was awful.
Yeah.
Eloy Jimenez, the guy oozes talent, but just can't stay on the field, can't put consistent at-bats together. Tim Anderson. What's the, just all of these guys that, like, you look at these individual guys playing for this team, mm-hmm. and none of them make any kind of sense. And that's just the White Sox for you.
Yeah. Like
the only
laundry.
I'm telling you, the only bright spot in this whole organization, there's 2 I'll give them. Number 1 is Liam Hendricks.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, he's out.
Mm-hmm.
And number 2, I'll give you Lewis Robert. He's not perfect.
Mm-mm.
Don't get me wrong.
He's White Sox perfect.
Right? But at least Lewis Robert shows, hey, this guy's got superstar ability.
Yeah.
Maybe if we put some guys that can actually develop somebody that can set a culture, maybe this is a guy that we can truly build around because the talent's off the charts.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So that's the two bright spots. Anybody else, they need to clean house, man. Like, it's time.
Yeah.
Blow it up.
Blow
it up.
Yep.
And start afresh. But you have got to, if you're an organization like this, you've got to find people that know how to develop people and know how to build a culture from the ground up, because there is none of that from what we can see in White Sox land.
Yeah. Quick note, and I don't have his name here, but I believe, I don't know if it's official, but they're looking at the assistant GM for a really good baseball team. Do you know which one to replace him?
Oh, God. Are they trying to poach the Rays?
No, it's the Kansas City Royals. Going after the assistant GM of the Royals. So
are you kidding?
I'm not. I wish I was, but I'm not.
Oh,
I'm also not a White Sox fan, so it's not that tough for me, but it's tough for baseball.
Lord.
He was part of the staff for the 2015 team, so, I'll give him some flowers there, I guess, as the kids say. But
So one thing that I just thought about,
hit me.
and can you correct me if I'm wrong?
Absolutely.
Weren't these also the two front office executives that traded away Fernando Tatis Jr.?
That is a truth fact. Yeah. No.
Because he started in the White Sox organization.
Yeah, they should have let him go then. Yeah. Pretty bad.
Ugh.
I wonder if they get other jobs in the similar position. They'll probably get picked up by the Red Sox.
Oh,
man.
Lord, the White Sox. They're the
Sox.
gift that keeps on giving, though, man. We always have something to talk about.
There's no doubt, dude. All right. Okay, sad news, but we're going to spin it in a happy way because this guy is incredible. Steven Strasburg is going to retire from Major League Baseball. I think they're looking at September. But he is a former MVP of the World Series in 2019. What other accolades? First overall pick in 2009. He was the ace of the staff for a long time. Signed that big deal, $245 million over 7 years, and just hasn't been on the field. He's pitched 31 1/3 innings. Here's a little history on his injuries. During his rookie season, you remember he got shut down. We've talked about this. He also had an elbow injury, had to have Tommy John, and then fast forward a decade. In the summer of 2020, this is when the wheels fell off once again. He had some season-ending carpal tunnel surgery because he couldn't feel the baseball. I don't know if you remember that, Will.
Yeah.
And then more devastatingly, the thoracic outlet syndrome in 2021, which is just a noted, really difficult injury to come back from.
I think Matt Harvey had that same thing.
Correct. Boy, Matt Harvey, dude. We could do a whole show on that young man. Dude, we could talk about where it went wrong, but I want to talk about where it went right because he was so awesome. Just off the top, favorite memories of this guy playing baseball?
Man, I mean, I would have to say right off the top, just a member of those star-studded Nationals teams. I mean, think about how good those Nationals teams were for that couple of years stretch. I mean, you had Strasburg, Patrick Corbin, who was awesome.
Yep.
Trey
Baby
Turner.
Harper.
Yeah, Bryce Harper. Juan Soto came up with the Nationals. Rendon, when he was just magic.
Yep.
Ryan Zimmerman was a great player for that franchise. But going back to Strasburg, I cannot think of a more hyped pitcher prospect in recent memory. I think the only one that really compares is maybe Clayton Kershaw, and obviously people were right. But I mean, Strasburg, I mean, as soon as he was drafted number 1 overall, I believe he was out of San Diego State.
Correct.
Like, I mean, they knew that he was just basically a sure thing, as sure as you can be on somebody.
Yeah.
Because he had the 100-mile-an-hour fastball. He had the incredible breaking ball. So yeah, just electric. I mean, and so all of that right there, just as hyped of a pitching prospect as I can ever remember, actually delivered.
Yep.
Because he was a key piece,
Big
for
time.
the Nationals for those number of years. So, but you just think about, like, with a guy like that, what could have been, even though he had such a great run,
Yeah.
it just felt so abrupt,
Yep.
at the end because he couldn't stay on the field.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? I try to look on the bright side. At least we got, X amount of really good years, fun years.
Yep.
He got a world championship. There's a lot of guys that would trade places with him for sure.
There's no doubt about this. Shout out to Chris Rose in Baseball Today. I was listening to their podcast this morning, and they were talking about this. And I want to throw out a stat. They said quickest to 1,500 strikeouts.
Wow.
In all of Major League Baseball history. So, yeah, this dude was special, and good for Washington for hanging on. They did everything right. They won the World Series, and they locked him down to that deal. And, I mean, what else?
Just didn't work out.
It just didn't work out, man. That just didn't work out. But we wish him all the luck in the future and whatever he does. I could definitely see him coming back to baseball. He had a lot of personalities. Yeah, just a cool guy, really cool guy. And we wish him well. Will, last segment before we hit Roman Candle, buddy. Who's putting the fire out? Now, we haven't done this since maybe late April or May.
Yeah.
This is, if anybody new listeners, guys, this is kind of our segment where we take a dive in on the bullpens and who are closing down these games. And what it was designed to be was throughout the year, we take a look at maybe if somebody goes down or, you have somebody just kind of come out of nowhere. That happens in bullpens from year to year. You can either trade for these people or pick them up off the wire. Trade deadlines are done for like the majority of fantasy baseball leagues. You guys are ramping up for your playoff runs. And I am speaking to the Roto crowd right now because I want to throw out some guys that are still available. You can pick up off the wire. And that maybe they'll push you over the edge for your saves category, okay? Also, shout out to Will, made a great point. Bautista went down, and I did a little research. Mid-pod. That was fun. He is on the 15-day IL. They haven't disclosed what's amiss with his UCL, but something's off there. So, I got a few teams here. What you're going to notice, other than the first one, which we're going to talk about who's going to take Bautista's place in the interim in Baltimore, is these are teams that the season just hasn't worked out, for obvious reasons. And so their closers are more available. So let's get rolling. Let's talk about the man who's going to step up in Baltimore. And, before the season started, couldn't say his name. Still maybe couldn't, but Yennier Cano. Nope, still can't say it, Will. I think I get nervous when the lights are on, buddy. 1.62 ERA, under 1 whip, 0.98 whip, 57 Ks, 4 saves. And you're like, whoa, that's not a lot of saves. Well, when you have Felix Bautista in the ninth inning, what are you supposed to do, Will? You got him on a couple of teams. What do you like about Cano?
Man, I tell you what, the one saving grace for Baltimore, because here's the thing, I believe with Edwin Diaz out for the year for the Mets this year, I believe Felix Bautista had cemented himself as the number one closer in baseball.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that is saving the Orioles right now is the fact that they have Cano.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's been, I'm not going to say he's been as good as Bautista, but he's at least in the ballpark.
Yeah.
And there's not many guys that you can say have been even in the hemisphere of Felix Bautista this year, and Cano's one of them. So I'm going to assume that he at least gets the majority of the ninth inning looks moving forward. I know that Baltimore's got a pretty good pen, so they might use maybe a committee approach. I have no idea what they're going to do.
Yeah.
But you would think that Cano would be maybe the number one option.
Yep. He's 50% rostered, so that's, go out and get him
definitely go
now.
out and get him if he's available.
Correct. And the rest of the guys on this list, and I'll hit them all now, Will.
Yeah.
They're all under 50%. So these are gettable dudes, okay?
Yeah.
Oakland. Oakland Athletics. We kid, but they win some games, which means they win some games by 3 or less. Most of the games they win are probably by 3 or less. And the man you're going to want to get is Trevor May. He's 28% rostered, a 4.25 ERA, but if you grade that on the Oakland scale, that's like a 1.50 ERA, okay? His whip is 1.5, not great. 29 Ks with 14 saves. Remember, guys, we're looking at the saves numbers, okay? If you're tight on your ratios, maybe stay away from Trevor May. Rhymed all the way through there, Will.
I like it.
That made my day. Let's keep on going here. St. Louis. They
made
have
your
two
day
options.
with Trevor May.
Ooh. Ooh. Now we're all getting in on it, okay? Leave your rhymes in the comments, and we'll just keep rolling here. St. Louis, two options. Jojo Romero. He's 8% rostered. 3.55 ERA, a whip under 1, 0.97. We like that. 37 Ks and 3 saves. He currently, in his last 9 appearances, 17 Ks to 1 walk. So that's pretty nice. And then Giovanni Gallegos, 43% rostered, a 3.72 ERA, 1.72 whip, 48 Ks and 9 saves. He's also an option, but I feel like they like him more as like our kind of like flyby guy in the 7th or 8th inning. He struggled in the 9th inning in his career. So
yes, he has.
I'd go for JoJo, guys. I really would.
Agreed.
New York Mets, man. They lost a closer at the beginning of the season, and they traded one to Miami. So they have a couple guys picking up saves now. Adam Ottavino, famed Red Sox and Yankee. Interesting. 27% rostered at 3.24 ERA, 1.18 whip, 46 Ks and 7 saves. And then Brooks Raley. Will knows Brooks Raley from his time in Tampa Bay. 14% rostered. He's still getting some saves, though. 2.51 ERA, 1.30 whip, 46 Ks and 3 saves. So they go with either one of those. Last guy, Justin Lawrence, 21% rostered. He plays for the Rockies. So, 3.84 ERA, a 1.23 whip, 62 strikeouts, 10 saves. Dude, we got a list of names here, about 7 guys. Anybody standing out to you?
If I had to choose any, I would probably go with I would probably go with one of the 2 Mets.
Okay.
Whether it be Brooks Raley, Adam Ottavino, really take your pick, flip a coin. Yeah. If you prefer a lefty, go with Brooks Raley. If you prefer a righty, go with Ottavino. Here's the thing. Justin Lawrence, if he played for any other team, literally any other team, I would be fine with you going out and grabbing a guy like that if he's available. The problem is he plays for the Rockies. Not only are the Rockies really bad, but they play half their games at Coors Field, which is just a death trap for any pitcher. And you're just asking any given game that he gets in the game that he gets blown up. So it's tough, man. You said it with Gallegos. He doesn't really get that many saves because the Cardinals kind of move him around depending on what game situations. And he'll have about 1 in every 4 or 5 games where he gets blown up. Yeah. And so it's really tough. But again, remember, these are only guys you should be targeting if you're pretty desperate for saves. Like if you're in a roto league and you're, a manageable distance away from getting another point or 2 by acquiring a couple more saves, like that's where we're saying potentially go out and get these guys. If you've got a really great team, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Yep. So that would be my 2 cents. I would go after one of those 2 Mets. That would be my first options. And then from there, it's honestly a total crapshoot.
There ain't no doubt. There ain't no doubt. Hey, Kansas City and White Sox. I know their fans are out there like, what about us? Yeah. What about our guys? That's kind of what Will said to me before we started rolling. I was like, that's a great point. Yeah. So we'll hit on them real quick. Carlos Hernandez, and then for the White Sox, he's for the Royals. For the White Sox, Gregory Santos. Okay, both of these guys have just been getting tanked. So I couldn't, in my right mind, Okay, I care about you guys. I want you guys to do well. I want you
Yeah.
guys to listen to Bringing the Heat and be like, oh, these guys helped me. And if I give you these I don't
Yeah.
even know the adjective to describe them. Yep, probably swell guys.
But they are
But-
not performing well.
Correct. Perfect. That was nice, PC. Will, I loved it, buddy.
Yeah.
Guys, good luck, man. It's ramping up. It's going to be a lot of fun. Speaking of a lot of fun, let's move to my favorite segment. Oh, man. I hope I didn't spoil it for anybody, but we have made it to the Roman Candle. Pick to click player of the week. Will is up 11-2 after a crushing, I don't know, dude, false start last week, right? With the Crone thing.
Yeah.
Let's talk results, man. We had the battle of the fringe wildcard team first baseman. Since we made this, both teams are on like 6-game winning streaks. So again, you're welcome, guys. For Will, he went with Christian Walker. He
Struggled.
Will coming in like a Mad Lib struggled. He did struggle. That's the perfect word. 2 for 15, a 133 average, 1 RBI, a 369 OPS.
Not performing well.
And now my guy, Ty France. You're thinking like Cody's going to absolutely hammer this. 5 for 27. That's a 238 average, 2 doubles, 1 RBI. OPS almost double, but it's still 693. Those are the same numbers, but just jumbled around. 369 to 693. There you go, Will. I don't know what that's called, but somebody out there can let us know. So he struggled a little bit less, but still not great, you know. So I get a win. This is I verified win. We looked at it together. We said kumbaya, and I'm going to take my 3rd dub of the year, and it feels great. So a lot of people.
Congratulations.
Thank you. This is like my first legit one, I feel, because I know the first one was with Bogarts, and then
Right.
I guess
Bogarts like was hurt that whole week. So
yeah. It's my favorite week of the year. It was just, I was like, oh my gosh, he's not playing. I'm gonna win. Okay, let's talk week 21. It's gonna be a great one. Will, tell me who you're picking.
Man, here's my thing. I feel good about where I stand as far as our head-to-head matchup. But here's my thing. I want to start getting in a couple of my favorite players.
Here we go.
And I mean, I might be the biggest Adley Rutschman fan on the face of the planet. So I'm going with my guy here, man. By the way, if Adley Rutschman or
Dude.
any of his representation listens to our show,
Yep.
and Adley would like to, however
Yep.
long or as short as he wants to, I'll be
Yeah.
on the show.
Yep.
Y'all just reach out, and he
Will
is more
will
than welcome
tattoo
anytime.
his signature on the
Oh,
side of
God.
his face.
Man, I love Adley. So we're going with Mr. Rutschman this
I
week
like it.
for Roman Candle pick to click. And you know what? Even if I lose, he's still my guy. So
Yeah.
Dude, just had to pick him though.
I'll tell you this, even if you lose, you better believe defensively he helped that staff. He is the most well-rounded guy.
He's the franchise man.
The franchise, I love it, dude.
Dude, I'm sure you're aware of this, but maybe our listeners aren't quite in tune with how insane this is. Did you know that ever since he's been called up, which was, towards sometime in the first half of last season,
Yeah,
the Orioles have yet to be swept in a series?
I did. I heard that a couple weeks
How
ago.
insane is that?
That's nuts.
And I mean,
That's
we're not
nuts.
talking about the Yankees or the Astros or the Dodgers here. The
Yeah.
Orioles were a struggling franchise for a long time
Yep.
before he got called up. And
Yep.
ever since then, they have yet to be swept in a series.
Dude, it's wild. It's just, we talk about culture with the White Sox.
Yep.
It's got to just feel good. And good for Baltimore, man. They are a fun baseball team to watch.
Agreed.
Love that dude. No doubt about it. My guy, Battle of the Catchers, Sean Murphy. Once again, I just saw what Will did and said this would be kind of fun. So we're going to go Sean Murphy. Here's the deal. Speaking fantasy here for a moment. He's only played 90 games this year. I get these little notifications on my phone. They let me know when people are sitting or when people are starting. And it feels like every day his name pops up. Does this guy play baseball anymore? He's not hurt. He's just splitting time with Travis d'Arnaud. And so I did a little deep dive before we dove on here. He sits about one of every 3 games, which I have named the 2022 Buxton because that's just what he did as well. But this is just due to the Braves have so many good players that, and they don't need offense from their catcher. They get it from the other 8 positions. So they're just keeping him fresh. He's had a solid year, though. 271 average, 20 home runs, 65 RBIs. So not a bad pick in fantasy, but, dude, the volume's just not where you would think it would be for this guy. So let's pick it up, man. Let's play. I know now, as I think about it, like he might only play 4 games. Let's make him a great 4 games so we can start a winning streak. First winning streak in bringing the Heat history for Cody. That would be solid. Will, what do you think about that?
Hey, I like it. No, you know what's really interesting though is and this is a topic for a different day, but you wonder if Sean Murphy played, I don't know. I don't even know what the number is, but let's just say like X amount more games than he currently does given the current situation for the Braves. I wonder what that would do to his 2024 value because, I mean, I think on a per game basis, he is easily a top 5 catching option now, like especially that he plays for the Braves, right? Mm-hmm. But if the Braves continue to go this route, kind of mix and matching with d'Arnaud, and rightfully so, I totally get why they're doing it. Mm-hmm. How does this maybe impact his value, especially going into next year when he should be, in my opinion, an easy top 5 catcher? Does he maybe go just outside of that because he gets less playing time?
Yeah, no, that's a great call, man. Looking at his stats, I was like, well, Will said, hey, what's it going to look like if he played more games? Well, I was like, he played more than any catcher did last year and more ABs than anybody. Yeah. He had 18 home runs last year and 66 RBIs. Now, the 18 home runs is kind of shocking. The 66 RBIs is not because he played for Oakland. Nobody was probably on base. Right. But it's very interesting. Dude, his OPS is 903. I didn't have that in the bag. I just saw that. So, he's going to be a top pick. I cannot wait to dive in. I mean, I guess I can because I also want to enjoy the playoffs and all that fun stuff. But
season is going to be awesome.
It's going to be a lot of good discussion, man. It feels like the league has just like had a rebirth of all these young kids come up and Carroll and Rutschman, and it's going to be a lot of fun, man. Guys, reach out to us on Twitter or X at BTH_Cody at Will Sism. Tell us hi. Ask us questions. I'd ask Will most of the questions. Check us out on YouTube. You want to say hi? I think we got both our lights on today, which is kind of fun. Mm-hmm. So hello. You can see our faces. That's awesome. Just bring in the heat, and it'll also be in the description of the podcast if you want to come check us out. But we really, really appreciate you guys. Until next time, thanks for listening to episode 45 of Bringing the Heat.